courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at its testing point. C.S. Lewis.
Bending Not Breaking, Season 2, Episode 12, The Serpent's Pass. And we're back again with another episode of Bending Not Breaking. I'm Sunshine Mayfield.
And I'm Ben Pruitt.
And we are talking about the episode Serpent's Pass, which like is weird because when you look at it like on the DVD, it's a double episode because it came out on the same day.
The secret
But
of the Fire Nation.
Right, but it's the Serpent's Pass and the drill. We wanted to give each part of the episode its due, so we are doing the Serpent's Pass now, the drill next week. Yeah. Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
And this is a fun little episode, and we're doing it through a lens of courage.
Courage.
And there's
encouragement.
Oh, that was... I don't know how I could forget. He's in my face.
I didn't forget.
I just didn't get a chance to introduce our wonderful producer.
Who just did a couples retreat reference. Come on now.
No one saw that movie.
I sure did.
You're the only one.
Encouragement.
That is not a movie people like.
It's got Charlotte from Sex and the City in it. What more do you want?
I don't know. But Vince Vaughn's in it, right?
Jon Favreau.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's fine. Like, that's not a memorable movie.
Yeah, but we just named most of the cast. Let's see if
Most?
we can keep
There's like 15 people. It's like
there's
following like a whole bunch of different couples
four
on our
couples.
retreat.
It's like four couples, and we just named Kristen Davis, Jon Favreau, and who did you say?
You got the dude
Vince
from
Vaughn.
what's the surfing
Why
movie?
are we
Blue
still doing
Crush?
Kate Bosworth?
No, one of the NFL players that she taught how to surf is also in couples retreat as like
Jesse Palmer?
no. All right. He wasn't in Blue Crush.
I don't know who's in
He
Blue
was
Crush.
a bachelor. All right, let's talk about the Serpent's Pass and let's talk about some courage. Max, it is time for Max's uninformed recap. And here is what you are going with today. Your first scene is the gang swims at a watering hole and plans a route to Ba Sing Se. It ends with Aang discovers that a giant drill is headed for the protective wall around Ba Sing Se. Your keyword/phrases are ferry, like a boat, not like Tinkerbell. Pregnancy, Suki, air bubble, and refugees. You have 60 seconds, and away we go.
All right, so the episode begins when the gang is swimming at a watering hole, and they begin to plan a route to Ba Sing Se. And while they're thinking about that route to Ba Sing Se, they're like, well, we're in a watering hole. You know what helps sometimes with water? It's ferry. So let's take a ferry on our route to Ba Sing Se. And then, you know what also sometimes happens on a ferry? People get pregnant, and that's how it goes sometimes. So that there's a pregnancy, and then the rest of the episode features it's like a one of those double feature episodes that it's like between two different TV shows, right? And so the cast of True Blood shows up, and that one vampire guy's like Suki, 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 and that's all. That's really the only thing he knows how to say to Anna Paquin in that entire series. And part of what protects Anna Paquin from that guy, I think his name is Bill, is an air bubble that's around her. And then they're like, well, refugees, guys, let's get back to Breaking Not Bending. What is this podcast? What is this show? The Last Airbender.
It is Avatar: The Last Airbender. That is a very distinct difference.
And then, of course, they discover a giant drill is headed to the protective wall.
All right, you're out of time.
Ba Sing Se.
Wow.
Suki.
Not even close.
That wasn't even funny.
I thought it was pretty funny.
I didn't laugh once.
Yes, you did. You like True Blood.
I liked True Blood.
We'll
and then
rewind the
just was
tape and
way
see
too
whether or
much.
not you laughed.
Ben, it is your turn to actually recap the episode. You've got 30 seconds, and away we Go.
The gang is splashing in water, and then they're like, oh my god, we need to get to Ba Sing Se, and then Suki is not even there because, hold on, we're not there yet. And so Sokka's trying to figure out what's going on. He's like, we should go this way, and, you know, Toph is super snarky and be like, oh my god. Anyway, they get to this refugee family. He's like, oh my god, come with us on the ferry because the Serpent's Pass is dangerous. They
10
go on that
seconds.
way. Then they like, oh no, we can't go on the Serpent's Pass. We can't go on the ferry because it's, you know, passports. And then they take the Serpent's Pass, fight a serpent, and
3,
they get to Ba Sing
2,
Se after a nice
1.
pregnancy
Stop.
birth.
Can I tell you all about how I spelled Ba Sing Se when we were when I was taking my notes and you were giving me all the clues?
Absolutely.
So it's like I have a supervisor, right? And sometimes I call them my boss. And sometimes my boss likes to sing instructions to me. So like, boss, sing. But then it's like, no, they probably shouldn't be singing. They should probably just be saying. So I just wrote boss, sing, say. Is that right?
It is not. Do you want to take another guess at how to spell it?
No.
It is B-A space S-I-N-G space S-E. Ba Sing Se.
That's great. I like my way better.
Sure.
I like his way better too.
You're going to go against canon?
I'm just saying I like it better, not that it's correct.
Well, let's talk about this episode and as they are trying to get to Ba Sing Se. And let's talk about it through the lens of courage. Ben, what's courage?
So I'm gonna quote this wonderful lady. Her name's Brene Brown.
Have you heard of her?
Yeah. So courage is a heart word. The root of the word courage is cor, which is the Latin word for heart. In one of its earliest forms, the word courage meant to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. Over time, this definition has changed, and today we typically associate courage with heroic and brave deeds. But in my opinion, the definition fails to recognize the inner strength and level of commitment required for all of us to actually speak honestly and openly about who we are and about our experiences, good and bad. Speaking from our hearts is what I think of as ordinary courage.
But still very important to highlight as it takes courage to do those things.
But courage nonetheless.
Exactly. I looked at Melanie Greenberg, PhD in psychology, the 6 attributes of courage. All right. 1, feeling fear yet choosing to act anyways. 2, following your heart. 3, persevering in the face of adversity. 4, standing up for what is right. 5, expanding your horizons, letting go of the familiar. And 6, facing suffering with dignity and faith are the 6 attributes that this doctor would contribute to courage.
I don't like the way that one of those is written.
Which one?
Can you read the one about diversity again?
There wasn't one.
Then I might have heard it wrong, which is why
Persevering in the face of adversity.
Okay, I heard diversity, and I was like, I don't like that.
As in, like, you've really got to plow your way through people trying to be diverse and bringing everyone to the table.
I was like,
you better flip the table.
I was about to like really be like,
kind of goes against everything we've talked about on this show from here on out. We really just don't like it.
Yeah, I was about to have
please. Diversity, great. Ed is saying persevering in the face of adversity.
Great.
I apologize if I needed to enunciate.
So I would like to try and discuss this idea of, one, the difference between bravery and courage.
Ooh, let's.
And I want to really, I just want to dive into this idea that courage and fear are not necessarily connected. They can be, but they don't have to be. I think that you can be courageous and not feel fear at the same time. And so I don't think that fear has to be present in order for you to experience courage. Because I think that's the narrative some of us tell, is that fear is, you have to overcome your fears in order to be like. I just don't always think that's true.
So let's look at the very. I think this actually for me, what you're explaining highlights the very first scene for me. So, Katara waterbending bomb into the water, right? That's what
Yeah.
she. I don't think there was any fear there, but jumping off of a cliff into a pool of water, I think takes courage, right? Like,
Well, and I think that for me, it would take courage.
so right. So I view it as courageous because it takes courage, but because of her understanding of her own abilities, her understanding of how she can be safe in that aspect, for her, she probably wouldn't call it courageous, but I would.
Yeah.
And I called it I said that was a moment of courage. I see that as a moment of courage.
Yeah.
And it doesn't require her to feel fear in that moment for me to still identify it that way.
Can we for funsies do a little experiment? Max, you can participate in this.
Love to.
So can we just start rapid firing, say things that we find, what is courageous to you? And just start, like, let's go for like 30 seconds on the clock and just, what is courageous to you? Ready?
We're just
Set.
going in a circle.
I just go, just whenever. On your market, set, go.
Standing up to a bully.
Singing in public.
Going on your very first roller coaster.
Singing and dancing in the car when you know somebody is watching next to you.
Yeah, public speaking.
Fighting cancer.
Fight. Yes. And, other illnesses, or when hope is bleak.
Wearing something that goes against the grain of what your peers expect you to wear.
Yeah, having a tough conversation with a loved one.
Choosing an outfit every day, even though you know you're colorblind.
Yeah, going out into the arena even though you think there's a really good chance you'll fail.
Telling somebody how you feel about them.
Admitting you were wrong.
Admitting you were wrong. That's a good one. It should have been mine. Feeling, acknowledging you don't have all the answers.
All right, let's just
Going on a vacation with 3 other couples and allowing a movie crew to go with you.
Let's call it there.
Going and traveling by yourself.
Yeah. So that kind of was just a little experiment just to kind of see what came up. And you'll notice that there was a lot of diversity in what we said. And
Diversity is a good thing. I want to highlight that again. Diversity is a good thing.
So that is just really interesting because for me, I would say that I am scared of doing some of those things. I am scared of, speaking my feelings to someone where there's something on the line. There's a lot of vulnerability in that moment,
Where you don't know how it's going to be reciprocated.
Or where I don't know, like telling someone I love you. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like immense courage
Vulnerable.
required. Yeah. And so what I'm noticing is these are moments in which there is more vulnerability involved rather than, and sometimes that is also in tandem with fear, but it's not always fear. It's the vulnerability and the immense connection it has with courage is what I find most interesting. So for me, jumping off a cliff is, I see in Katara that is very courageous. Katara in herself is probably like, what do you mean? There's no risk at all.
Correct.
There is no uncertainty. There is no fear, right? But what we see in other people is often identified as courage, where what we see in ourselves is different than that. And I think, where do we see that in this episode? And I think that could be something that's worth talking about as well. Courage is one of my favorite values, y'all. Partially because it's an umbrella value, like C.S. Lewis said, where it's all of our values when they're tested.
Yeah. So I like Suki talks about leaving
Yes.
leaving Kyoshi.
Suki, not Suki.
Yes. Talks about leaving Kyoshi
I've heard it both ways.
because she's inspired by Aang and his behaviors.
Yeah, I thought that was
And
really awesome.
Her and the Kyoshi Warriors just go up and start helping refugees and find themselves in different places. And I think that was something I was like, that's courageous, right? Like, it to leave a place of comfort to go out and help others is a courageous act, and that was something I really admired in this episode.
Well, and we also it's that, and we also see Suki is traveling with the gang to make sure that they safely cross the Serpent's Pass. Like, she didn't need to go.
Put herself
with
in
them.
harm's way. She, again, in a safe space back at the ferry and
Yeah,
putting herself out there.
yeah, absolutely.
That's probably a moment of courage that I saw highlighted. Toph walking on ice
Yeah, it's a big moment for her.
was a moment of courage where she really had to rely on, was this ice set up properly, right?
Yeah.
Did someone else set me up for success on this? And I can't see on this really either, right? Like,
My question is why?
here's my question. Love Toph. Think she's brilliant. Why not just raise the ground for the whole pass? Like, with that section that's underwater, why not just raise it all up above water? She's got the ability to do that. And yes, it might be tiring, but like, she easily could have done that.
Yes, and sometimes in the moment, like, yes, we have the brilliance and wondrous privilege of hindsight.
She does it. She lifts them out of the water and does it. So why not just do that with the rest of it?
Have you ever been in a situation where you have...
No, I already know where this is going, and no, I haven't.
You're lying. We have so many... There are so many situations in our lives where we, like, we figured out a way to get out of the frying pan, but then we don't realize that, we can continue doing the same thing or do this on a greater scope, or we could just change this one thing that we're doing and it would solve the problem.
I'm sure
right?
there is a time where that has happened, but I can't pinpoint it. But I can pinpoint this. Raise all the land out of the water, and then this wouldn't have been an issue.
Sure. I think...
And why not do it for all the other people that are going to come behind you?
I think that that's a brilliant thing to do, and I wish she did it, and I think it would have solved their problems. I would think it would have made it so that they didn't have as many issues, and they didn't, and I'm going to forgive her for that, because I know that sometimes it's really difficult in situations of immense pressure to make the right call, but I'm proud of her for staying alive and keeping the group alive in the moments that she did.
Yes, I agree. Let's continue. Other moments of courage that you saw. And maybe some that are, you don't think necessarily like come across as courage, but definitely are courageous.
We'll get to those. The next one that comes up for me is Suki confronting Sokka. So I think that it's really interesting to watch Sokka deal with his pain of losing Yue through this episode.
And how willing he is to share that.
Willing and unwilling at the same time, right? And so
Talks about it.
it takes him the whole episode to get to the point where he's able to talk about it, right? So he is like helicopter parenting the heck out of Suki at this point. And
Because he failed Yue.
exactly.
Because he's a failure.
And so wow.
He let her die, Ben.
He
Let her die.
and I think that's an act of courage.
Can it be both failure and courage?
Sometimes it takes courage to let yourself fail, knowing that it's the right thing to do.
Yes, continue.
Like,
No. Yes, no. You're correct. I mean, I'm clearly being facetious with
yes,
my how much.
but you're ruining the entire episode. This is an episode about courage. It's just interesting. Like, he is.
It's
in
courageous
grief.
that he then goes back and still engages in a relationship, knowing that he failed so badly on the last one. His last girlfriend died.
Yes,
That takes courage.
It does, but I think what's very human about his entire trajectory throughout this episode is we forget that that's why he's so protective
Yeah.
throughout this episode of, like, she is clearly able to defend herself. She has the skills necessary to do that. She has proven that time and time again in her ability to beat Sokka in combat. She's proven that in just multiple ways, not just combat ways, but in her leading of the Warriors of Kyoshi to this point. She is just very capable. And Sokka is being a helicopter, and it's so human. It's so real that we see him work through that emotion. He's unable to deal with the fact that he might lose something else. And I think that engaging in love when we have lost, again,
It's hard.
takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. And in the same vein, I feel like that's similar to Aang learning to hope, learning to feel again.
I definitely want to talk about that.
Because he's felt pain, right? He's felt pain. He's lost hope. And though he has a courageous moment, he shares that, right? Like, he shares how the shame that he felt around going into the Avatar state with Katara, which is vulnerability, and that's courageous.
I wrote down exactly what she says in this moment because it was just so...
It's great. It's one of her great quotes of the series.
Yeah. So Aang, this is right. Aang is saying he was so angry that he lost control, and so now in this attempt to remain in control, he has admitted that he is like blocking these emotions.
He's numbing.
Yeah, exactly. And so Katara wisely says, "But now you're not letting yourself feel anything. I know sometimes it hurts more to hope and it hurts more to care, but you have to promise me you won't stop caring." And that is just one of the most incredible lines from a cartoon, period.
Series is filled with them, but this is one of her best ones for sure.
I just, you cannot numb the dark without numbing the light.
Correct.
Brene Brown.
Yeah.
You might have heard of her.
And again, what an important thing to understand. The moment that you don't let yourself feel pain, you will diminish the joy that you can potentially feel as well. It is inevitable.
Well, and we see Aang, he's not himself. Normally he's laughing and happy-go-lucky and energetic. In this entire episode, he is like, "Why do you look at me like that? I'm fine."
Yeah, we have to give up hope. That's the only way to get through this path. We just got to stay focused on where we got to go.
And just emo Aang all episode.
Which, who doesn't love a good, like, Aang that listens to My Chemical Romance?
Yeah, for real.
I would hang out with that Aang.
I mean, I'm sure he's cool and all, but, like, I would want him to be in a place where he's not having to numb those good things.
And how cool is it, that moment? And again, we know that these are, like, the 6 episodes in the Avatar series from, like, the end of the library all the way to, like, Lake Laogai that, like...
Yeah.
That, like, people skip.
Yeah.
People don't want to feel these episodes.
The messy middle there is there for a reason, and it's one of the reasons this show is so powerful. It's because of the messy middle.
Like, it's so much to get through. And you get this really cool moment from Aang where he sees this newborn baby come out after everything's all said and done and see what his actions led to. What his ability and Katara's ability and Sokka's ability and Suki, the ability to take this family from one point to another to hopefully provide them safety and allow them to bring life into the world is a moment that he is just so in love with and feels.
And let's go back to a quote that we talked about last episode, but hope is a function of struggle. He is struggling, and he has been struggling, and now he sees that through that struggle, there is some good that has come out of his struggle.
And that hope is restored.
And that has given him hope.
Literally.
Yeah, let's talk about how hope is like a really common name. And they were like, we need a unique name. But also in the Avatar world, it may not be a common name. But like
Also,
in general,
is it that common? How many?
I know a few.
Do you know a few? I know.
Yeah.
I want to say 0.
Wow.
I don't think I know any hopes.
Yeah, I do.
So, Max, how many hopes do you know?
I don't know. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Yeah.
High hopes.
High hopes.
What song is that?
I've got high hopes.
I don't know it.
Do we have the rights to that?
I don't think so. I was going to go Panic at the Disco.
Anyway.
For a minute. Yeah.
Lots of summer camps
Yeah.
with hopes.
Yeah. Anyway, so yes. It was a little on the nose.
Just a little.
But still a really cool moment there.
100%.
Let's talk about. Should we bring up the Freedom Fighters and Iroh and
I think
Jet?
we gotta.
And
Yeah.
because we spend a good amount of time with them. But how does courage play into that? Is it courageous to go get food from the captain's quarters and share it with the refugees?
I wonder if that depends on intent. And so for me, it seems like that is presented as we want to eat better, so we're going to do this, rather than
I want to feed the people.
I want to do something that is going to challenge my values, and I want, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like there's a...
And we've got this projection of who Jet is already based
Correct.
off of
That's true.
previous. And we even get a nice little moment of like Pyro saying, I believe in second chances, and even Jet saying he's trying to kind of start a new life and be a better person. And you see moments with the freedom fighters themselves that are nice. We get the Smellerby quote, which I think is one that typically does get quoted by fans of the series. As long as I'm confident in who I am, it doesn't matter what other people think. How do you feel about that quote?
Yeah, I think that this is a teenager who is going through something that is really tough and saying what they think is right. That's what I think about that quote.
Because this is going to be a little bit of a tangent.
I think it's a teen
relevant,
aspiration.
Is that does what other people think of us sometimes matter? Right? Like
no,
and that's so my question is sometimes that important? Is the perception that I'm giving off when trying to help others or create a space of safety, does what other people think of me matter? And I think the answer is yes. Not all the time, but sometimes I think it does.
I think we have to be careful when we talk about what people think and how that affects us, right? And so oh my God, I just do it too often. But Brene Brown talks about...
it's like 3 this episode.
It's this episode, yeah. She talks about how we have to have like a 1 inch by 1 inch piece of paper and writing the names of people whose opinions we value on that sheet of paper. And the goal is not to write as small as you can and fit as many as you can on it. It's to write at a normal size. And if you have more than fits on that sheet of paper, you're probably doing it. You're probably putting trust in too many people, right? Because when we are placing our value and worth in the opinions of others, we are bound to get hurt, right? And it is the values and opinions of others that keep us buoyant throughout our lives and help us float instead of drown. And so, yes, we do need to value the opinions and expressions and the thoughts and words of others. And at the same time, I think we need to be very careful about who those people are.
Yeah. So, and my I think my way I kind of almost think about this quote is there are times where if we are trying to create a safe space or I'm trying to create a safe environment, I'm trying to work with those that I supervise. I need them for it to be a successful venture. I need people to not view me from a sphere of feeling unsafe when I'm around. So I need to act in a way that I think aligns with my values, but I need to act in a way in creating a space that people feel is safe. If someone believes that I am unsafe, I need to take awareness of that and likely look at what actions might be making them feel that way. And maybe change some of the actions that I'm portraying on a regular basis. And so that's for me something I think about. Same with like if a parent thinks that I'm cold and aloof when I'm working with their children, I need to understand why they feel that way and understand that they feel that way. And maybe I don't need to change anything that I can. Maybe there's a perception thing that I can't change that I need to be okay with, but I need to have an awareness of that and treat it with respect and
Can
with
I guess
validity.
and you?
Yes.
I really want to be careful with how that attaches to this specific scene. So Smellerby has been misgendered.
Yes.
And I don't want what you just said to come across as a parallel to her experience.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
I was more speaking of the quote out of context from the episode, which is where it comes from.
I just want to make sure that our listeners are aware.
I think that's a very important thing.
Because I don't want that to be misconstrued. I think that in this situation, Smellerby is exactly who she needs to be,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that she presents as male to Iroh does not mean that she needs to change her appearance. It does not mean that she needs to do anything that helps, if it helps her feel
change her
confident,
authentic self.
to change her. Yeah, she does not need to change anything about her presentation or identity in order to help others accept that in this moment.
100%.
I just wanted to be very clear about that and my thoughts on
So
that.
yeah, so out of context with that quote, that's where I was kind of coming from. In context with that, yes, she doesn't need to change anything about what she's going on there. And it's courageous to correct someone. It is courageous to stand up
Yes.
for who you are,
Well, and
and to have other people who are willing to stand up with you. As
Long shot.
Long shot.
Right? Homeboy doesn't say a word, but his empathy and his ability to communicate without speaking is so powerful that she is like that.
She feels it.
She feels it, and that it takes a lot of courage to communicate in a way that doesn't require you to speak. One, I don't know if he's mute. I don't know if this is a choice or if this is something that they've just built this communication over the years. I don't know what it is, but the way it presents itself, this whole sense of relationship between the two of them is very touching.
Oh, 100%.
And I also, frankly, want to be careful about, nor do I want to place blame on Iroh in this moment. Right?
Now, if he continued to misgender her,
Yeah, that's when the issue would begin, but he doesn't.
no, he tries
Right?
to. He tries to.
He immediately tries to rectify
Yeah.
what he said, right? And so one of the things that would help this conversation is if, hey, when we introduce ourselves, we identified with our pronouns, right? And I think that making the implicit explicit, because clearly our implied things are not as clear and transparent as we would hope they are. So
Yeah.
it's just interesting. Yeah. So to answer your question about the freedom fighters, I don't see stealing food in this situation as an act of courage. I see it as I'm hungry and I want to eat better moment, not a test of their values.
Yeah.
Do you see it differently?
No. I think Iroh is there when this conversation happens.
And was not against stealing.
Correct.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I think it is important to highlight that as much as we love Iroh and how much of a wise
He's human.
individual he is, he's human and he makes mistakes. And this isn't the first time I would call this a mistake. Like, he didn't speak up, and I think he should have.
Yeah. There are several examples that we could point
Throughout
to.
the series.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to understand that, yes, we love Iroh. Yes, he's a beloved character. Yes, he brings so much wisdom to the show. And in so many moments is very courageous.
And no, he's not perfect.
Yeah, correct. And I think that's okay. But I also think it's important to highlight.
I think it's important. It's not only okay. I think it's important to not put anyone on a pedestal.
Right.
Right? It is... Anytime we put someone on a pedestal and forget to see their faults, we begin to make decisions that could perpetuate some of the things that they do incorrectly or do poorly or do wrong and call that the right thing.
Exactly. We have to understand that just because we believe that this is something that, that this person behaves
And that
correctly
takes courage.
the entire time, that everything they do is right because they're right is a fallacy.
Well, it takes a lot of courage to see the faults in someone you idolize, frankly. Because if you are dependent upon that person, for instance, your parents, right? If you're growing up and you have a relationship with your parents that they could do no wrong, and then they do something wrong, like abuse you, or they make poor decisions about money, or they do things whatever it might be, you could see that and be like, oh, well, if they did it, that means I can.
Well, statistically we repeat the behaviors that we
Exactly.
experience.
And it's and I think that's because we grow up idolizing and idealizing the people that we love. And when we forget to forgive is the wrong word, but when we forget to see, notice, and be aware of the fact that the people we love are human, we fail to hold them accountable.
Well, and the understanding that holding people accountable, it doesn't mean that you don't love them, or doesn't mean that you don't care about them.
Sometimes it means you care about them, frankly, more.
I see that very frequently, and when people get upset when people criticize the government or the country.
Correct.
And they say, "You're American. You're not supposed to be doing that. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. You're in America. It's great. And you don't love America because you're doing this. You don't love so-and-so because you're doing this." When reality is, no, I just know we can be better.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I know
Taking a
that
knee
we
during
can-
the anthem.
Yeah. That's something that shows, like, it doesn't mean you don't love the country. It just means that you're recognizing that it can be better.
Yeah.
And that shows a love for the country. Because
Yeah.
when you give feedback, it's a form of kindness. Like, feedback is a form of caring. And so you would have loved to see Iroh step in. You would have loved to see Zuko say,
No.
"Hey, that doesn't seem right." But we don't, and they steal it. And they get away with it, like, pretty easily. You would have thought that, like, the guards would have noticed a bunch of refugees eating, like, the pork that was
You would think.
gone missing from the chef's quarters. Any other big moments of courage that we need to talk about in this episode? We've talked about Aang dealing with his emotions. We've talked about Sokka dealing with his emotions. Katara really takes aim, and we get to see some really cool action from Katara. We've seen her fight Master Paku before, but we get to see her
This is an
really,
interesting
like,
fight scene.
It's like a Silver Surfer. Like, she really shows you what she can do.
Creates a
while on
whirlpool with
water.
Aang.
Yeah, they do a really good job of. It's a fun little fight scene with the snake, and the snake just slithers off. The little sea snake just goes away.
After getting knocked out
Just
against a
bloop.
cliff.
I'm gone.
TKO.
Yeah. What about that moment with Toph when she gets saved by Suki?
Yeah.
And she thinks it's Sokka and kisses him.
You can let me drown now.
Yeah, out of embarrassment, right? Like,
Yeah.
all right, just let me drown. What do you? Anything you take from that moment? Anything worth highlighting?
I think Toph would have felt embarrassed regardless, honestly. Whether it, like, that just seemed like once she got on land, I feel like she would have said something sarcastic to deflate the
Lessen the tension.
lessen the vulnerability that she felt in that moment. Yeah, I think that she would have felt embarrassed regardless, because it's not like her to feel so helpless. Last episode, ding, ding, ding.
And again, like, so she goes from sand to, like, land and then to ice.
Yep.
Which, again, putting her out of her element there. But yeah, and then we get how about the courage that it takes to go on a journey when you're that pregnant, and knowing that you're not just potentially risking your life, but another life that you're responsible for.
Again, like, if you go back to the C.S. Lewis quote, it's a test of our values, and it's not just one value; it's a test of all of them. And I think that knowing what she wants for her child, knowing what she wants for her family, knowing what she wants and the values and the way that she wants her child to be raised, not in fear, but in the safety of a town that is historically safe, I think that requires immense courage to travel and be as, like, 9 months pregnant, right? Assuming that she's 9 months along, but judging by the health of the baby, I would assume it was pretty close to 9 months. I also think it's worth highlighting that competence breeds confidence.
Yes.
And Katara is extremely competent when this baby starts coming along.
She's seen it. She's helped give birth.
And
Or,
that,
you know,
to me, being able to go into that kind of a moment with that amount of confidence and what I would call courage, to be able to walk in and be like, all right, this is what you need to do. This is how you're going to help. I need you to create the tent. I need you to help me in here. I thought that was very courageous.
Absolutely. And you see the juxtaposition of Sokka, who's like walks into the room and passes out, like
Yep.
has no context. So, a lot of cool. Courage was a great lens for this because you see it in unexpected places that you wouldn't technically say that was courageous. So it's great to be able to highlight all those things.
It's my top 2 in my core value list.
Courage.
Yep.
What's your 1?
Love.
Aw. Well, I love everything you've said today. This has been a lovely time. Max, you got anything you want to add to this episode?
I do not.
Well, I guess we should quickly talk about the drill that is impending upon the city
There's
of
a
Ba Sing
drill!
Se.
It's huge!
And does it take courage for Aang to sit there and say, I've got to go find Appa, but then stopping going, I know I've got to deal with this first?
I think again that is a test of his values, and I think he is having conflicting values, and this is the culmination of that. And I think it requires courage. Absolutely.
And then we get a fun little episode right after this, the drill, which will be next week. And the lens we are looking at that episode through is, you sent it to me earlier. I got to pull it
I
up.
sure did. It's censorship.
It's resourcefulness.
It's resourcefulness.
So,
Don't worry, we can bleep that out.
no.
Censorship is episode 14.
Ooh,
We're looking ahead.
Going a little bit ahead. Once again, this week we do not have a voicemail, but here's what I'll say: send in a little voice memo. We love having them. We want to hear them, and I might throw in a little something to sweeten the pot. If you send in a voice memo, we might let you choose the lens for an episode in season 3, and you get to pick whatever lens you want.
Ooh.
So send us those voice memos, and we'll let you pick a lens for a future episode.
We should get Bending Not Breaking t-shirts.
Ooh, we can just make it rain shirts.
Yeah.
I like long sleeves with writing on the sleeves. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Ooh, what about a long sleeve that looks like the
And stickers.
is the arrows, is Aang's arrows,
Ooh, I'm into it.
right?
I'm into it.
That could be cool.
I'm into it.
We'll
Let's do
design it. Let's do it. Or you can design it and throw a little logo on it, a little Bending Not Breaking logo.
We will mention your name as designer.
Yeah. We will. I mean, we could even sell your merch. I don't know. We'll strike up a deal. All right. We're going to jump into our devotion after a short break, and we are going to be talking through courage through the lens of water. Nope. Element of water.
H2.
We'll be right back. All right. It is time for our devotion as we look through courage with the element of water. Ben, what you got this week?
There's so many ways that water is important, and I think that it is the nourishment that all of our life needs. We are 75% or something. What a percentage of water we are? We're a lot of water. I don't remember what the percentage is.
17% water.
I'm pretty sure it's more than that. We're a lot of water.
There's no way to know.
Okay, we're clearly science people. Anyway, I've been thinking about this devotion, I've been thinking about the dew in the morning, and
The Mountain Dew.
no, the dew on the grass.
Up to 60% of the human adult body is water.
God, okay, this is devotion time. No interruptions.
Sorry, that's true. This is a sacred time.
And the dew that is something that we've come to expect in the morning on our a morning walk, but it's also one of those things where it is almost like ever there. It's something it's a natural way of life, and that's kind of how I want courage to be in my life. Is I want it to just, it's not always visible, it's not always present, but it is always, I can always count on it. And I know that the dew will be there, and I know that the rain will come, and I know that I can always rely that it's on the water that is in me. And there are vast bodies of water, there's vast bodies of courage that if I want to go and experience that, I can. And I just, there's courage everywhere, and I think I just want to be more aware of the courage that is in me and that is in my life, and I want to take notice and stop and smell the courage.
I like that. I think for me, when I think of water, typically the personality traits that are water. You hear a lot about emotions and emotional awareness. And I think it's important to remind myself that to feel my emotions is courageous, to show my emotions is courageous, and to not try to numb or hold those things back. And so this week is just going to be a reminder of allowing myself to feel what I'm feeling, process it, and continue to understand that is the way that I can show courage, and also give permission to allow other people to do the same by modeling that. So that's going to be mine this week.
I love that.
Oh, thanks. Max, anything for you? You going to do anything this week?
Not at this time.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening to another episode of Bending Not Breaking. Remember that you can give us money on Patreon to help keep the lights on and to help keep Max here.
I like lights.
So that's patreon.com/the Arc of E. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at BNB_pod. B as in boy, N as in night.
Good Lord.
Really? That's the word you're going to use. A word that has a alternate spelling that begins with a different letter.
It's not BKB_pod. And
Oh my goodness.
that's Instagram and Twitter. And then send us voice memos. thearchive@gmail.com. And we'll let you pick a lens for season 3. Thank you all so much for listening. I'm tired and Sunshine Mayfield.
This is Ben.
Say it again, Ben.
Ben.
This has been Bending Not Breaking. Thank you for joining us.
Goodbye.